Good morning, podcast listeners. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. You can always reach me. I say this every time, and no one ever reaches out, but I know somebody will one day at edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. I tried to start this podcast last Friday, and I got very busy during the week, and I kept procrastinating, which I always tell you not to do. And it's funny because I'm just really frustrated today. And what I was going to do last week was I was going to do a speech that I'm preparing, and I was going to do it in podcast form. But what I learned as I was putting this thing together is it's very difficult. They're two different mediums, and it's funny because it's hard. You can't really copy or do a speech like that. I guess I could, but it's kind of different, like I said. So if I'm doing a speech, I'm usually preparing a slide deck and I'm going through that slide deck and I'm kind of just ranting or whatever, put one word up there and I can talk about that word. In the podcast, it's a little bit more casual. I can start and stop. I can edit. I can do a lot of different things with the course of speech. If you show up to do a speech somewhere, you're on the hook to do the speech, and there's no starting over or anything like that. So that doesn't matter to you much. But as I was putting it together and trying to get my thoughts organized, and what'll happen is inevitably I'll write a speech or do something. And I've told you this before. I get, if I write a speech today, tomorrow I read it, it doesn't feel right because it's just every day is just a little bit different. So it's generally why I just put up a word and then I just rant on that word. So if I keep looking over to the side, it's because I'm looking at the slide deck that I prepared for the speech, and we're just going to talk about a few things about that. So the speech that I'm not trying to, that I'm putting together is it's about you, um, straight out about you. It's about you taking control of some things and being a little bit selfish, and not selfish in a bad way, selfish in a way that's for self-care. It's not about you doing something selfishly that would hurt somebody else. It's actually about you doing something selfishly that will help you help others. Because I know more about you than you think. Now, I know most of my listeners personally, and then hopefully there's some listeners that are just starting to watch my podcast or listen to my podcast. So hopefully you can kind of get the idea of where I'm headed with this thing. And towards the end, it's going to get a little bit not confusing, but I'm not done with the speech. So at the end, I'm just going to be throwing some things out there. So, um, like I said, this thing is all about you. This is about you taking some time for yourself, whether it's during meditation, whether it's just turning off your phone for a half an hour and just kind of thinking about some things. And because I know most of you are nurturing type caretakers, leaders, parents, grandparents, caretakers for somebody. And I want you, I think it's really necessary that you follow some of the things that I'm going to talk about. And this is all my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm none of those things. My experience comes from dealing with people for the last 63 years of my life and in business for the last 40 years of my life. And when you're in sales, you're meeting hundreds of people a year, and you have a very short window to figure those people out if you want to be successful in that sales call. Okay. And I'm not always successful in a sales call, and no salesman is successful every time. Um, by the way, one of the things I say in my speeches, this is a participation sport. This is something you need to do on your own. I can't tell you how to do this, and when we get to it, you'll understand why. I cannot. Nobody can tell you how to handle what we're going to talk about. There's nothing in books anywhere. There's ideas, there's theories, there's all these things, but it's extremely, extremely individual. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I go. So I put in this a slideshow that I've met thousands of people in my life. I mean, literally thousands. When you talk about being in running nonprofit organizations, networking, being in sales, and talking to all these different people that were, that you run into, and I always say that I learned there's four things I know about people. Even though we are, the odds of us being born just being born are 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion is the odds that you were even born. And some scientists say, when I look online, of course, everything online is true, it could be as high as 1 in 256 quadrillion that you were even born. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about coincidence, and I said, I don't really believe in coincidence. If you think of just take my wife and I, we have different ancestors that came over to America at some point. And if you go down, like 5 layers of generations and talk about how in the world did my wife and I end up in the same spot with as single parents meeting each other is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just, what are the odds of that even happening? And probably higher than 1 in 400 trillion. But it's just a miracle that you people are listening to me, and that I'm here, and that we're here at the same moment. So you are 100% a phenomenal person. You were a phenom that you were even born, and the odds prove it. The other thing I know about people is they all know something I don't know. And I love that about meeting people and talking to them and learning about their business or their life or, their environment when they were growing up. Everybody is so different. And, I was looking up DNA. Is there anybody that I think it came up? What I found was there was 38 people, 38 cases of people that had the exact DNA. Even twins don't have the exact DNA, which tells me how different we are. But at the same time, like I said, I can meet people and they know something I don't know, and it's always very interesting. And that's a homeless person to a CEO to a gang member to an athlete. Everybody knows something I don't know. And I love learning about that and having people tell me, because they love talking about themselves, most people. And I love learning about those things. The third thing I know about people is they all have an intrinsic value to humanity, to society, to your community. You all have the potential to reach things that you don't think you can. And I see that in people. When they're telling me they have a plan to do something, or they have a business or something and they want to grow that business or grow physically or grow whatever, they all have the potential to do it. Every person I've ever met can get better at what they do or do something, try something new. You're not starting from scratch. Even if you go into a business that has nothing to do with the business you're doing now, you're not starting from scratch. You still know how to deal with people. You still know how to do accounting if that's your thing. You still know how to do all these things. So you're never starting from scratch. You're just going into a different business. And I got news for you. People are people no matter where you go. So you're gonna be fine. I always see the best in people. I really try to do that, even if it's somebody I just can't stand. And I'm frustrated right now because of something that happened a few years ago, and for some stupid reason, I just can't let it go, and it irritates me that it's holding on to me, and I just have to find some way to get this out of my mind because it's driving me nuts, and it pisses me off, and it's taking up time in my brain when I should be doing creative things and I'm not. I'm holding on to this anger, and I really have to let it go. I'm pretty good about forgiving people, but I'm not there yet with these people about forgiving them because things keep happening and keep bringing it up, and it just irritates me more. So, like I said, 3 things that I know about people: you're a miracle. You all know something I don't know, and you have an intrinsic value to humanity, and you need to figure that out and look in the mirror and tell yourself how much you love yourself so you can be that best version of yourself. Number 4, I'm going to get to in a minute. So have you ever had somebody tell you you can't do something that you think you can? I don't know why anybody would ever tell somebody that, but it does come up, and it's come up to me. I have 2 things that stick out of my mind of people telling me I couldn't do something. One of them is when I was working at Pepsi. I was running the service department, and I wanted to get back into sales. And I went to the manager of our department and said, look, I really need to get back into sales. I need an opportunity to make more income. I went through a divorce. I was paying a lot of child support. I was seeing my kids super often, and I just needed more income. And the manager asked me to shut the door. He asked me to sit down, and he says, look, Ed, I'm going to give you some really good, like fatherly advice. You should never go into sales. You don't have the personality for it. You won't be good at it. And you should just, I'm just telling you, stay where you're at in operations, learn more about that, and live out your life in operations. You just wouldn't be a good salesman. 2 weeks later, I'm doing my job, and a salesman comes in to sell. That was our like our rep for fittings and tubing and things like that at the Pepsi. Right, and I was telling him about this meeting I had with this guy. This guy's name was Chuck McNeil. Unfortunately, I think Chuck has left us. I'm not sure. I haven't been in touch with him in a long time. But he says, there's an opening, and it was for his competitor. His competitor had an opening, and he says, you should give this guy a call. And he tells me the guy's name, gives me the number. Super nice guy. I mean, he knew that there's enough business to go around for everybody. So he gives me the guy's number. I call him. We set up an interview. It's up in Glendale, California. So I go up to Glendale on a Saturday morning. I sit down with this guy. We talk about the whole thing. Monday morning, he calls me. I get the job. So now I'm in sales. What I was told I just couldn't do. I was selling in the 11 Western states, calling on Pepsi, Coke, all these other, entities out there that used our product. And I was killing it. I was so good at it. I was surprised that I'd never thought about going to sales before. I mean, I had been in sales at Pepsi, but how hard is it to sell Pepsi, right? You talk to people, you get a display, you get things like that. That's how you made money at Pepsi. So that was the first one. Tells me I can't do it. And I wasn't distraught from it. I went out and talked to the guy, and 2 weeks later, I'm quitting Pepsi and going to work as in sales. And I've been in sales ever since then. So over 30 years. And I've been very successful and done very well in sales. The second one was a guy I was in 2014. I told Kit that I wanted to go, my wife, if you guys don't know, I told her that I wanted to get out of construction. I wanted to get into another business because construction, I was just kind of tired of calling on project managers that would, you do a really good job for them. Then the next job, they'd make you be low bidder again. They just would rant at you and yell at you and complain about everything. And you had to be nice to these guys because they were the ones purchasing your product. And I just wanted out of construction. Oddly enough, about a year later or 6 months later, most of these project managers would lose their job after the project was done, and then they'd call me to find out if anybody was hiring. So then they wanted a favor from me, which I always obliged and did whatever I could. So in 2013 in December, I told my wife I want to do something different this year and moving forward. And one of the things I want to do is I want to do public speaking. I want to get out in front of people. I've always wanted to do it my whole life. And we'll call it motivational speaking at that point because that's what I thought it was. And I said, so how should I do this? So I knew a guy that did speaking engagements all over the world. He was a church member. So I set up an appointment with him, and we went to a Starbucks in Poway, and we sat down. And I was telling him what I wanted to do, this kind of speaking and this and that. And he's kind of working on his laptop. He's an older gentleman, and he looks at me and says, Ed, the problem with you speaking is you haven't done anything in your life. And I thought, I never really thought of that. I never really thought that I didn't have any stories, according to him, that I didn't have any stories or I hadn't done anything. And that one really kind of took the wind out of my sails. I remember going back, we left the meeting shortly after that. I left and went out to my car, and I kind of sat in the car. Remember, it was a really hot day, so I turned the car on, I turned the air on, and I just kind of sat there going, wow, that's not what I had. That was not my expectation from there is to be told I couldn't do something. Shortly after that meeting, the church was building another building on their property, and they needed people to go and speak to parishioners about getting money, about fundraising, and to tell them the story about the plans and all these things. And so I volunteered with this group at church, and I started doing speaking. And I had done very little prior to that. And it was going really well. I was getting people to respond. Other people that had volunteered were asking me to fill their slot because they didn't feel comfortable getting up and talking. And it was very natural for me. It didn't matter how many people were in the room, as long as there was a microphone, or I sometimes don't even need that. I would just get up and speak in front of people, and it was very comfortable. I knew what I was talking about. Uh, one of the people that were listening to me came to me after one of the days and started talking to me about his company. And lo and behold, I ended up going to work for this guy in a totally different industry and ending up being the vice president of sales at this company. In addition to that, I was doing a lot of networking with the Chamber of Commerce in Poway, and their chamber CEO had left. And I said, you know what, instead of hiring somebody right away, why don't you just let me, I'll do an interim position. And they thought, well, that was a good idea. They paid me a little bit of money, and I went and I started running the chamber part-time, finding out that it was the train wreck. They were going out of business. They were running in the red. And I was able to, do some things to get that turned around. And then ended up becoming the full-time CEO and president at the chamber. Now, what came with that is a lot of speaking, right? Getting up in front of people, speaking at mixers, speaking here, speaking there, speaking for other organizations that wanted to, get knowledge from me about sales or whatever. We talked about marketing. We talked about a lot of different things. Networking was a big topic. And now I'm feeling just really comfortable getting up and talking in front of people. It doesn't bother me at all how many people are there. I used to joke that if I wasn't wearing glasses, I can only see about 3 rows deep anyway. So that's only like 18 or 20 people that I'm talking to because I can't see anybody else in the crowd. Now, of course, I can see shapes, and when I have glasses on, I can see everybody. Still didn't bother me. Give me a microphone, I can get up and talk about just about anything. Sales, marketing, leadership, management. And so here I am being told I don't have ability. I don't have anything to speak about. And here I am talking in front of people. Now, going back through my career, I had been in sales for a long time. I had been in the mechanical HVAC industry. I had been in the Pepsi business. I sold cranes at one point. So there was a lot of things I could talk about. In addition to that, I have 8 children, 7 daughters and a son. And believe me, you gain a lot of knowledge and wisdom when you're raising that many children. And we currently have 20 grandchildren. So what do you mean I have nothing to talk about? This guy I was talking to had a couple kids. He never talked, but yes, he was a graduate from Annapolis and he did all these other things. But the people that he was speaking to are far a smaller population than who I can speak to, because I want to speak to the general public. Because I think that we're being told on a regular basis that we can't do things, or we need to pay somebody so we can do things. We need to hire coaches. We need to hire this and that. And I'm telling you, it's already all within you. And the fourth thing I'm going to talk about today is the thing that might be holding you back. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. So now, conversely, have you ever been told that you can do something and that it was very encouraging and you felt great about that person, you respected that person, and they told you, dude, you can do this? And it just gets you excited, right? It gets you motivated. Now, motivation's interesting. When I was doing that speaking at the chamber, a lot of people would come to me afterwards and say, Ed, I really get motivated when you speak. And man, I'm just pumped up every time. You got this high energy, this level of energy. And when I listen to you, I get all excited and my brain starts, moving. I'm like creating dopamine and things like that. And as I started studying speaking more and more and talking to people, I found that motivation is great, but it's not sustainable usually. And I would say to the people, look, if I get you all pumped up right now and you're in this meeting and you're just jacked and you go outside and someone just wrecked your car or put a big door ding in it, all that motivation that you had 5 minutes earlier is gone, right? Motivation's hard to sustain. And there's going to be days, I get up and go to the gym. I get up at 3:45 in the morning and go to the gym. I am not always motivated to do that. Some days I just want to sleep in. And some days I do. Some days I'll take a break and not go. And it's not because I have a lack of motivation. I've already been there 3 times. And now I just need a break. My body, I'm not 25 anymore. So sometimes I need to recover a little bit. So then I started thinking about, what about inspiration? So inspiration is a little different. Inspiration lasts a little bit longer, than the motivation. But again, when you start dealing with things like number four that I'm going to talk to you about in a few minutes, you start to lose that inspiration too. So the thing that somebody told me I could do and I thought was awesome, and I still remember this, it was when I was 10 years old. I was in Euclid Elementary School. I was in fifth grade. And I went to that, and that school was from kindergarten to sixth grade in San Diego when I was growing up there. And then junior high was seventh, eighth, and ninth, but I had moved to Poway when I went to seventh grade. And my principal came up to me, Mr. Koskinen, and I remember this guy as this tall, thin, kind of Leave It to Beaver dad kind of guy, Ward Lieber. Really handsome, like a 50s movie star, great hair, all that stuff. And he used to wear a suit every day, and it was always to the nines. I mean, his shirt and tie were perfect, and his jacket was awesome, and he was just a really kind man, and everybody loved him at the school. The teachers loved him, the kids loved him. And he came up to me on the playground once and said, he put his arm on my shoulder and he says, Ed, you're a leader, and you're always going to be a leader. And when people watch you to see what your next move is, and then sometimes it inspires them to do good if you're doing the right things. And understand that leadership, you can do the wrong things and lead people down the wrong path. Now, I wasn't doing that, I hope, at 10 years old. But I remember that day, and I remember why I remember this is 52 years ago. I remember this, but I didn't really even know what he meant. But I remember him leaning down and telling me that, and I felt so good after that. I mean, it probably inspired me or motivated me or whatever. And that was one of those things that sticks out of my mind that was so positive, right? This guy telling me, this great guy that I loved, that was a great leader, telling me that I'm a leader. And lo and behold, I ended up being a parent and having jobs that were in management and things. And I'm not bragging, I'm not being conceited. I'm just saying it's been an easier route for me to be a leader than it has been in other instances. I was asked before I took the job at the chamber, I was asked to be on the board, and I'm not I'm not good at that because I don't like collective decisions all the time. I kind of want to do things my way, which is really egotistical at some level, but they're usually really well thought out, and I'm not opposed to taking an idea, but I'm opposed to doing something that I think is not right or just isn't the best idea for the situation we're in. So I didn't want to go on the board, but when that opportunity came up to run the chamber, I was totally took it. So that's those things. That's that yes that you want to hear. And then, that stays around 52 years now. I'll never forget the day that awesome guy came up and said that to me. And I loved the guy before that. He had been the principal since I was in kindergarten. And I remember him. He was very interactive. I saw a meme on a video the other day where this principal was walking through the hallways, high-fiving kids. And I kind of thought of him when I saw that because he would always interact with you and not forget your name. And he would talk to you and never talked at you. And he was, like I said, just a real gentle, kind, great leader. And 52 years ago, I remember that. You're being told about every 2 minutes, and the algorithms in my social media come up as motivational speakers or speakers, speaking businesses that want to help you get speaking engagements. And I always hear these words, or coaches, or all these people tell me that I cannot do what they do unless I hire them, right? It's all those words. You must hire me to do this. If you want to be successful, you have to do this. And I call bullshit on all that. You all know what you need to do. I'll guarantee you. You may need to work on your discipline a little bit. And I just did a couple podcasts ago that was about what the devil would tell you about how to be successful, about how not to be successful, really. And one of those was have a plan. You don't need a plan. You need an idea, and the plan can develop. But if you wait till you have a plan fully engaged, you're not going to ever do it. The discipline comes from these little micro successes, as far as I'm concerned. You can have this really big success way out there. The way you get to that big success or that those big, hairy, audacious goals, as they explain in the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, that goal can be setting out there and down the road, but these little mini goals, these little mini successes, is really what is going to make you successful. So it's, with this speaking thing, I've had to, I'm just nipping at this organization and that organization, and I'm doing this podcast. It's going to go out in pieces to some of these people so they can see who I am and what I talk about. And those are those little successes you have to do, little marketing things, my logos, all those things are important. And those are all little things you can do pretty much for free. But it's those little, like, if you want to get in shape, it's not about going to the gym for a week and saying, okay, now I'm in shape. It's about those little, 30-minute workout sessions or some exercise here, exercise there. And next week, hopefully next week, I'm going to have a fitness coach on, and we're going to talk about some of these things, and we're going to talk about some of the myths out there that just, it's not how you go about getting in shape. Nothing good is going to come tomorrow. It's going to take a lot of work. So if you really want something, the only deterrent you have is that you need to have discipline. And I would encourage you, if you want to do something in your life, take the jump, take the leap. My life has gone very quickly. And there's a Latin phrase we use in the Knights of Columbus. It's called tempus fugit momente mori, which means time flies, remember death. Time goes by so fast. I'm going to have a 39-year-old daughter this year, and my grandkids are growing like so fast, and it feels like just yesterday when they were all born, and they're just growing up really fast. It's the same in if you have an idea to do a business, time's going to happen anyway. You might as well do something in between, and it's never too late. It's never too late to start. I see these speakers are all in their 20s and 30s and 40s. I get it. I'm not. I'm in my 60s. But what's that bring with it? That brings a lot more wisdom, a lot more years of experience and all those things. So it's not too late. So stop letting people tell you what you can't do, and listen to me and tell yourself what you can do. This is that selfish piece that you need to start taking care of. You can do anything you want. Of course, there's limitations to some things. I mean, I'll never be a 6'10" basketball player, but that's okay. It's not really what I desire to be. What I want to be is exactly what I'm going to be, and I can do it. And so can you. You have to be a little bit realistic, but not that crazy. So what's the problem? The problem is you have some things that are holding you back. And I think the thing we're going to talk about in a few minutes is one of those things that's really holding you back. And we all have it. You either had it, you're having it, or you're going to have it in the future. It's not one of those things you have to sit there and anticipate and worry about. But I just know that something is going to, that you're going to be involved in this. Whoops, I just went past my slide there. So the number 4 thing that everybody has, like I said, you either have it currently, you've had it, or you're going to have it in the future, is trauma, right? Trauma comes in a million different forms. It could be the way you grew up, the environment you grew up in. It could be maybe you're a child of divorce. Maybe you lost a puppy when you were 5 years old or 10 years old. No matter what, and it's not, you can look at some people and say, well, my trauma was worse than yours. Well, trauma is subjective. It's what that person, takes in. And if you're 5 years old and you just lost your dog, that would be super traumatic for a 5-year-old. They probably never had anything that bad happen to them in their life. Just almost knocked the microphone right off the counter there. So, and then there's it's all serious trauma as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what the trauma is. I know somebody that's close to me right now is going through some things at school with their friends, and it's typical stuff that happens at their age. I get it. I don't want her to get engaged in it. I want her to understand that she has to control her thoughts and feelings, things like that. And it takes up a lot of time, but it's traumatic for her nevertheless. And I'm trying to teach her how to handle this. And the thing is these traumas that I'm talking about, it could be a death in the family. It could be that you went through a divorce or a bad breakup or whatever. Like I said, it's subjective. It's not, mine's not worse than yours. And I'm probably not even going to get into some of the ones that actually, I take that back. I will get into a couple that I've had to deal with and the timing of what those were. So I want to remind you, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I've listened to clinical psychologists. I've read books about these things. And what I really understand that everybody is an individual and nobody uh, has an answer to your questions. Do you need a clinical psychologist? I don't know. You need to, maybe that's what could help you get over this trauma. The problem with trauma is it holds you back from being the best version of yourself. And if you were a caretaker for somebody, a manager, a parent, or whatever, and you have this trauma holding you back, you're not operating at the highest level you can operate at. So my selfish piece again is maybe you need to take that time. You don't need to get up at 3:45 in the morning like me or like a lot of people, but maybe you need to take 30 minutes out of your day, either in the beginning or the end or something, and meditate and think about that. Now, I was watching John Wooden the other day, and whoever doesn't, if you don't know John Wooden, he was a very successful basketball coach in the 60s and 70s for UCLA, and he was talking about excuse me, he was talking about how you cannot change what's happened in the past and you need to let it go and just forget about it. Well, trauma's not like that, in my opinion. I think what you need to do, so for instance, if you talk about my mom, I lost my mom in 1997. I was very, very close to my mom and probably think about her every day. Now, of course, I will never forget my mother. I have had to deal with that trauma, though, however, in my life, and there's certain ways I deal with it, how I think about it. I think about how I dealt with it, how she kind of taught me to deal with it before she even knew it was going to happen, and how you have to take the good things out of that too. So when you're talking about people generally, it's you have to have that great memory. That's the past you should be visiting, not the sadness all the time, but some of the positive things you can take it. I always think it's funny when someone passes away, let's say a celebrity, and let's take Elvis Presley for instance. So when Elvis was alive, Elvis was a train wreck, especially in the 70s prior to his death. He was a womanizer, he was a drug abuser, he was all these things. He had gained, 100 pounds. It's all his business. But then as soon as he dies, he's the greatest rock and roll person in the history of everything, right? We always forget about that bad stuff. And that's okay. I mean, that's the way we process things. Eddie Van Halen was another one. I always thought that he was one of the best guitarists in the world. But if I said that to somebody that knew a lot about guitar players, said, no, he's ranked 10, 12, 15, whatever. After he passes away, he's one or two in the world. We may do that with the people we lose in our life. I don't know. My mom was a great person, and I'm sure she had her flaws or she had some kind of sins or whatever on her. I don't know because it's my mother. Why would I don't know her that didn't know her personally like that? But I just often think about her and kind of, reflect on her advice and things like that she gave me. And I used to make her laugh, like cry laughing. It was just the funniest thing in the world. So I have all these wonderful memories about my mother and my dad and my stepdad and people that I've lost throughout the years. And I've been able to compartmentalize that trauma or that sadness. And sometimes it manifests itself with me driving down the road, hearing a song that I remember, and I have tears pouring down my face. It just, but it's not. I'm not doing that while I'm taking care of the people that I'm in charge of, right? So you get my point. If you're holding on to that trauma and you're just not letting it go, and it's funny, I just told you a story that why I was pissed off because I can't let this thing go. I need to get that. I need to deal with that. I need to compartmentalize that feeling and that situation that happened. It's just for some reason it's just come up like 5 times in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it went right back to those bad feelings. And we need to figure out how to stop that. We need to be able to control those feelings and focus on what we're doing. And I'm telling you, it's taken some hours out of my life in the last 2 weeks, and it irritates me more than anything that I've given it any thought because the people that were involved are controlling what I'm doing right now. And that's what really pisses me off. So trauma is defined as a disorder, psychic or behavioral state resulting from severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury. You might have been in a car accident that you're still having pain from. You might have a lot of things, different things could have happened. Kind of what I'm telling you, and I can't tell you this as a professional or anything else, but I'm just telling you to take some time, be selfish, and deal with that trauma. Whatever the trauma is, deal with it. Whether you have to go see somebody, whether you got to go talk to a friend. Prior to this podcast, 2 minutes before this podcast, I was complaining about this situation that happened, and I have a good friend of mine that listened and just kind of, we were texting, but I could tell he was kind of just sitting there. I thanked him for listening to my rant, and he says I didn't see it as a rant, which made me feel even better because he knows the situation, so he knows I'm right. And but being right doesn't matter at this point because it doesn't matter. Let me see what other slides I have here. So, like I said, trauma comes in 100 different ways, and we've all had it. And it doesn't always have to be something that's happened to you. It could happen in and around you, right? It could happen to one of my family members. I mean, I've got 8 kids and 20 grandchildren. You got to understand that when you have that many people in your family, something's going to happen. Unfortunately, the odds are with you that something's going to happen, and it directly affects me, but it didn't happen to me. It happened to them, and I have to. I'm the one, or my wife and I, or whoever has to deal with it. It happened around us, and you know, something that was really traumatic for me was COVID. I had a few friends. We lost a few friends. I lost my mother-in-law. Um, whether you believe it was from COVID or whatever, it happened during that period of time. And that's when I really decided, as I got a business coach for a couple of months and started looking at my life and going, you know what, this is something everybody has to deal with. Nobody gets out of life without some trauma in their life. And like I said, it's all subjective. It depends on how much weight you put in it. A guy came to me one time after I was divorced twice prior to our 22-year marriage now. And I regret those marriages, but I don't regret the results of those marriages because I have some wonderful kids from that. But he used to ask me, he says, didn't you get sad when that happened? I said, funny enough, coming from the family I came from, I didn't get sad. I got angry. The anger motivated me. The anger drove me. The anger drove me into sales. I mean, that's why I'm in sales, is because of that divorce. So I actually have to thank my ex-wife for that because I wouldn't have been in sales probably. I'd probably still be at Pepsi making shit money with a bad back and all those things, but it drove me out of that and got me into sales. So no, I did not get sad about it. I got sad because I got separated from my kids. I didn't live with them. They had to come visit me, which really drove me nuts because I didn't feel like I, was the cause of the divorce. However, that's how it works a lot of times. They stay with their mom. But I fought for my kids. I had my kids 3 weekends a month, every Wednesday, 10 weeks in the summer, every holiday for a week. I mean, that was my life with those children and still is, even though they're not here every day. So I just saw a picture of our wedding photo and it has 8 kids there with my wife and I. And that was the in and around when you have that many kids. So I'm going to close this out because I need to develop an ending to this speech as I'm talking to a group of people. One of the big differences when you're talking to a group of people is that I can see their emotions. I can see if I say something, if it's funny, or if they're starting to get sad, I can see the look on their face. And it could take me in a different direction or how I phrase something or my body language or whatever it may be. One of the things I'm going to talk about is, and a lot of you know this, that we lost a grandchild last year at 3 years old, and it's coming up on his birthday, and everything's coming back around again. And this is where that trauma, where my children are doing a very good job managing it, but it's impossible for them not to, I think, not to have to deal with this again and feel like they're right back as they were last year. And this is going to happen every year, right? It happens every day for them. I know it does. And I can't help them. I can put my arms around them, but they have their own things they have to deal with. And that, of course, the loss of the grandchild was devastating to us, still is. The other devastating thing to me is I can't fix it, right? I can't go to my kids and fix their pain. And you parents know what I'm talking about. You never want your kids to hurt or, you know, unless it's a life lesson. But that's fucking stupid when you're talking about this situation. This is not a life lesson. God might think it's a life lesson. I don't know. I can't even fathom that this happened because of that. But probably because I'm not God. God knows what's up. I just but there's other things that that happen to your children when they have to deal with pain that you just don't want them to have to deal with. But our parents felt the same way about us. I'm begging you to take some time out of your day, out of the next week, month, years, and take some time for yourself. Make sure you're getting healthy, you're staying healthy, you're dealing with those emotions because, like I said, if you want to be at 100% as a caretaker, parent, manager, leader, you know, whoever you're taking care of, because I know just about everybody in the world is taking care of somebody. To be the best version of yourself, you need to deal with this trauma. You need to deal with yourself first. It's the old, analogy of a oxygen mask falling out of the ceiling. You need to put it on before you put your kids on because you need to be top level so you can take care of those people. It's so important and it's so needed. And I got news for you. Everybody has had to deal with trauma. And I don't know if successful people have done a better job at dealing with it. I would have a hard time thinking that's true. I think that I'm not sure it has anything to do with how successful you are. But I can tell you this, if you're in that situation we talked about earlier where you want to do something with your life and you need to increase your discipline or get better at it, you're going to need to deal with this trauma. And like I said, I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could put my arms around you and fix it for you. I'm always willing to sit in the mud with somebody and let them talk about it because I think it's important that you deal with it and talk about it. And Kit and I do talk about losing our den last year. And you probably don't know, but a few years before that, we lost another grandchild. However, knowing that grandchild wouldn't probably survive, my daughter and her husband decided to go full term with that child. And he only lived a couple hours out of the womb. But we were prepared for that. Last year, we weren't prepared for it. It was a surprise to everybody. And I'm sure I'll talk about it one day. I may have talked about it on a podcast before. You may just be close enough to the family, you know what happened, but it's very difficult to deal with. But at the same time, when you have other children to take care of, which my kids do, they have two other children, they need to focus on them. They need to get them to school and get them fed and get them exercise and get all those things. They still need to do that. And you probably have that situation too. So I'll end on the note that I hope you take my advice and go deal with whatever traumas in your life. Let some things go. You got to let some things go. And this is what's that saying? Coming from the horse's mouth, I guess, is that I have to deal with this situation I brought up a few times. It just has come up in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I kind of take it and feel like it's motivation for me I think the best revenge in a situation like that for me is to be really successful and not talk about it, not tell everybody about it in the world. Not everybody knows about it. I have a few people that know about it, what happened, what really happened. And I'm nice enough guy not to call them out publicly, which I could. I won't, but because I just won't. I wouldn't want somebody doing that to me. And as much as I'm to have disdain for these people, I still wouldn't do that publicly. So this is the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. I want to thank you for listening. I want to hope that you take my advice and at least think about this. There's plenty of books out there that you could read on it. Everybody's an individual. Nobody can tell you the exact way you need to deal with it. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. But I promise you, I've had to deal with a lot of things in my life, more than I've ever said on this podcast and more than, I probably ever will say on a podcast. It's imperative that you take my advice and have to be selfish a little bit to get yourself squared away. Once you're squared away, you can do all those things. You're a 1 in 400 trillion miracle. That's amazing to me. You are a friggin' living miracle. You have the potential to do anything you can. And you know something that I don't know. And I hope one day you can tell me what it is. And remember, when you're looking at people, talking to people, there's two things I want you to remember. You don't know what they're going through. They could be in that trauma situation right now. And maybe they're not acting correctly, or they're lashing out, or they're in a bad mood, or whatever it is. Try to be understanding enough to know that they could be in that situation with the trauma. And um and the other thing is, you have a great value to your community, to the world at large. You're a value. You have to convince yourself that you have that value and that you're value to the people around you and to anybody that you help. Okay. Ask people about what they know and you don't know. It'll be amazing. And you find out what people know or what they do in their free time. I had a good friend of mine who's a successful business guy. He was a break dancer back in the 80s, and I never knew that. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. I would have broke something if I tried to dance, but he was really good at it too. I guess he won some contests and things. It was just something that nobody would have known. So anyway, edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of me. Stay tuned. I had a really good guest coming up that I met online. And we're having a little sit down meeting, a Zoom meeting on Tuesday to kind of decide what direction we're going to go with it. But you're going to love this person. And listen, have a wonderful weekend. It's Friday. It's going to be a little wet today. And but the sun will come out tomorrow, right? So edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com, Ed Franklin No Limits Podcast. Go to my website. It's www.edfranklinnolimits, all one word.com, and check it out. If you know of any speaking opportunities that I could get involved with, I'd love to hear from you. And you can always hit me up on social media, whatever. So please share my podcast. Maybe this is needed for somebody to talk about this trauma and to try to have them figure out a way to get around or through or over it. We all got to be a little bit more compassionate towards each other so we can help each other out. And that's all I'm trying to do with this podcast, is put my arms around you virtually and try to help you, get out and just let me sit in the mud with you, man. I'm happy to listen if you want to send me a text or an email or just, whatever. But share this podcast, and I'll be putting clips on social media, so it won't be so long. But anyway, check it out. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it, and go kill it.